advocating for and who it's actually representing, then it becomes pretty obvious to see, okay, how is that going to play out and how is that going to work out in the real world?
And where people's attention are going to go, oh, this is a top tier AI, let's just double down and use that.
Yeah. But I mean, like, oh, Jake's AI is going out there and negotiating to buying a car for him, and it's going to go and try and find the best deals. Is going to go and try and find the best deals on behalf of him, and then there's another person who doesn't have a great AI, and
the seller,
and they just can't advocate in the exact same way. It's like that's going to have real ramifications, and that's the nature that we find ourselves in. And it's so interesting that they bring it up, because in that discussion, it was basically assuming, like, okay, this is just the real world right now. Here's how things are changing. What are the implications of it? Because even though not everything is perfect with AI, it's the world with AI provides more opportunity for value than the world without AI. So we're keeping it.
That's true.
We're not going to get rid of it or ban it.
Right.
And so now it just becomes, okay, how do we work and live around that? And that's the mystery that we're in, the puzzle that All right, so what's up, everybody?
Back at it
with another Founders Drive.
Yeah.
This time we're in the city proper.
Beautiful city of Detroit.
The beautiful city of Detroit. Up and coming. The growth is crazy. It's safer now. I'll give you a quick little story. It's not really related to the Founders Drive, but
do it. Yeah,
but it is related to the city, and it is where we're building out of.
Yeah.
I remember, oh man, it was so long ago. It was over 10 years ago. I was downtown for a festival.
Okay.
And I was leaving the festival. It was around like 11 at night, and this is when Detroit was not what it is right now. This is what people have in their mind of what Detroit
what you're going to experience when you come to Detroit.
But it's not this, and I can tell you that for a fact. So I was walking downtown. It was after this country festival. I didn't even want to go to it. I like country music more, but back then I was just not about it. I was okay, save me on that. And so I'm leaving, and we're right in front of the Rensen, which is the GM building, the iconic GM building, and I start hearing some noises behind me. I'm a little bit ahead of my group of friends, and then I think it was actually just me and another friend, and we got separated for the group, but I was a couple paces ahead of him.
Yeah.
I heard some commotion going on behind me, and when I turned around, I caught a fist to the face, and I was just disoriented and out of it. I didn't really see anything. I kind of came to, and I saw my friend laying on the ground. He was bleeding out, and it was just commotion. I heard gunshots, and people were running. So, long story short, he's bleeding. You could visibly see that he's not in a good state. He gets taken into the building.
The Rensen building.
Yep. I go in with him because I'm like, I don't want to be around this mess that's going on.
Right.
My jaw was hurting bad, but there was a lot of adrenaline, and so I didn't think that much of it. I ended up going to the hospital with him, and I'm sitting there. I get picked up. His parents come. I get a ride back. I go home. I see some pizza there, and I'm like, if I don't eat it, my brother's gonna eat it. I forced this pizza down, and I woke up the next morning. It was like half-eaten pizza next to my bed because I was drinking, and my jaw still hurt. So I'm like, I should go and get this looked at. It turns out my jaw was broken. It ended up getting wired for a month and a half.
Oof.
And it was just the worst. My friend was fine. He had some lacerations and some cuts. Didn't even get any stitches. But me, I'm over here with a broken jaw, but you couldn't see it. And so, yeah, man, I had my jaw wired shut for a month and a half. I lost a ton of weight. I was drinking Ensure for breakfast. Ensure for breakfast, and like for all of my meals. Boost for breakfast and Ensure for dessert. Somebody ordered pancakes. I just sipped the scissor. I was trying to remember the lyrics, the lines.
That's it.
Yes, but so that was Detroit of the past. Detroit now Well, there's white women walking around past midnight.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
So
True.
If that doesn't show the difference, then you'll just have to come and experience it for yourself.
It's on the come up. Like, I think people should not be discounting everything they've heard around the city and try and come here and experience it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's coming up, and we're so happy to be a part of it, honestly.
Is this heat on right now?
No, it's not.
Oh, wow.
It is a little toasty in here.
It is a little toasty, but then we'll keep it up, though, because, like, the...
Yeah, some of the sound can.
Yeah.
Let me do this.
Yeah, cool. But, yeah, Detroit's dope, and so we're in the city proper right now.
We are, cruising downtown.
Yes. So, let's get into it, man.
Yeah, so this week, some really big news. For some reason, this week is where all the summits are happening. So like this week we had the Stripe Summit, their sessions and config annual meeting where they talk about their tech.
I haven't had a chance to look at that. You want to?
That stuff was pretty cool. So like Stripe, they're the number one payment processor kind of in the world for startups and big enterprises. Like I think Rocket, that's downtown here, uses Stripe too.
Our former employer.
Yeah. Stripe is they're innovating. They're pushing the community of payment processing forward. Some of the cool things that I saw this year that I'm excited to kind of use are the ways that we can dynamically configure checkout sessions. So previously, to get somebody to use a discount code, for instance, they'd have to click on a very specific checkout link.
Yeah.
And it'd be like, okay, because you clicked on this link, now we know how much of a discount to give you. Something that they're introducing is giving a single link and then some code that you can execute on Stripe's end that says in the checkout page, if I'm changing the quantity of what I'm buying, the discount automatically applies. And so stuff like that where it'll just reduce the headspace that we need to get into to build on Stripe and allow a single point of entry to be customizable for a bunch of different products and pricing use cases.
It's amazing that Stripe is still private.
Yeah, I think there are rumors about an IPO very soon.
Yeah.
I just don't know, I guess, if it makes sense for them, because I think they do have quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if that's something that they'd be going for in terms of like, oh yeah, we need an IPO to get, more capital.
Yeah, I mean, like an IPO is like it's an initial public offering.
Right.
And people generally do that because they want to get more funding from the public.
Exactly.
To pursue more ambitious goals. I'm sure there are other reasons too. A lot of times people are just like, hey, I want to get rich, and so I'm going to pawn whatever I have onto the public.
Yeah. That's where I see a lot of ICOs go.
Yeah. But I think Stripe has been able to accomplish a lot without the need for public funding, which I think is pretty remarkable.
It is, I think, and they're still innovating. They're not staying complacent. They're not falling behind.
Yeah.
They're still innovating, which I think is another reason why I'm comfortable using them.
Yeah.
The payment processing space is very complex.
Yeah.
And so just having that confidence and that trust, I think is big.
We were joking earlier this week about how, which I still think about every time I use the Stripe interface.
What's that?
About how good the interface looks and how the documentation is very comprehensive, but it's so complex.
It's so much.
So much information, and just to keep it all in head can be a lot. And sometimes you're never sure, is this a Stripe thing? Is this just how payments operate behind the scenes?
Right.
Is this, it can be confusing. It can be daunting. And I think you see a lot of people that post their Stripe page with the hockey stick graph going up.
Right.
Where you're like, am I doing something wrong? Because it should be easier. It should be.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't think about how complex pricing and charging is, and so they default to the fact that Stripe sucks.
Yeah.
It's like, no, this is actually the best that we can do.
Yeah.
Because the back end processes are so complex, and in an international market, in a globalized market, you need something that is this good, and even though people don't think it's that good,
right?
But we'll just vibe code it in a weekend maybe.
Yeah, they do make, I think, really low level tasks, or not low level, but more more simple, straightforward projects easier to get into.
Yeah.
And the barrier to entry in terms of getting payments onto your platform is easier.
Right.
But when you start getting into more complex tasks, like I want to do it a specific way, or I want to do it this way, this is my existing experience.
Right.
And I'm trying to introduce payments in, that's where it, like, by the nature of just payments and web development, it could just get more complex.
Yeah.
Was there anything else that I guess stuck out?
They're just, going towards a spot where it's just going to be easier and easier to do that startup mentality of spinning up a payment processing, feature in your app and starting to accept payments. Like, I think going down that mission of just making it stupid easy for someone to get started is a theme that I noticed that I'm, actually really appreciative that they're keeping that philosophy when building.
In the dynamic stuff, is there any use cases that you see us doing something?
Yeah, so
along the way.
Yeah, I think another thing that popped off this year was their usage billing platform got a little bit more mature, so you can start being a little bit more granular in the ways that you're going to do usage billing. Okay. And having AI and having all the things that we do, usage billing could be a very easy way for us to get granular on the things that we can charge for in terms of the value that we're going to add.
Okay.
Right. It's not just going to be like, give us a flat amount just to access it, but it could be maybe a per token usage or a time limit or a turn limit or something like that.
I think the more straightforward that stuff is, the better, because there's so many situations where a company will overcharge because they have to cover their ass.
Sure.
And essentially not give, like, they don't know how much people are going to be using. So you just take the average and you say, okay, we're going to assume everybody's going to be using our platform this much, or this feature this much, so we're going to charge this much. Yeah. But in reality, that's an average. There's some people that are using it more, and there's some people that are using it less. And so being able to accommodate for all of that ends up being huge. Okay, so...
Yeah, that was just one of the summits this week.
Yeah.
The other one that was really popping off, I thought was really, really interesting, was the Sequoia one.
Ooh, talk to me about that.
Yeah, there was Sequoia's AI Ascent summit happened in the last 24 hours or so since we're recording this. Okay. And it was...
And Sequoia Capital is a VC. It's a VC firm. It's like one of the best. Yeah, one of the most established, historic, and like, it goes without saying, but if you're not specifically in the tech space, but you are an entrepreneur, you might not have heard about them. So
something good, yeah. If you haven't heard about them, look them up. They're, like Tendo was saying, really good track record. Yeah. In the VC space.
A lot of projects and software tools that we use today.
Yeah, basically their summit was all around the changing economy that's happening right now.
Okay.
So right now,
what
specifically they called it the agent economy.
Ooh,
where
agent economy.
AI is going to get so good, a majority of the things, the transactions, the things that humans do today will just be done by agents.
Okay.
And so, yeah, not only having a wealth of knowledge at your fingertips, but then allowing these systems to take actions on your behalf is where they're putting their money as a bet and where the future is going.
And so an AI assistant, or an agent, I should say, is one that has agency over your, like, the actions that you want to take in the digital world.
Yeah.
And so we're getting to that place where these AI programs can essentially do a lot of things on our behalf in this world, and it's just becoming more and more robust. And so he's saying that the agent like, that's what the world that we're stepping into.
That's what's coming.
Agent. Okay.
It's very interesting, and then just kind of thinking about how that comes to be, right? And so something that was really cool was listening to some of the partners at Sequoia talk about how they've seen the progression of technology happen over the course of the last couple decades, and then how using that rate of scale applied to the next 5 or 10 years means that we really don't even know where we're going to be able to get to. Specifically stuff like how in the 2000s, there's a lot of emphasis, 95 to 2005, a lot of emphasis on the hardware, and then moving into the software with search and Google. And then after that search and Google kind of, .com burst, Then you had like a more mobile centric view from the 2010s to, you know, till around now. And then now we're in this AI age, and every single time that we've gone into a new, I guess, like age of computing, I guess the rate of change has increased. And so now when we're talking about 2025 to 2035, that rate of change, we're going to see probably just an insane amount of growth because we're standing on the shoulder of giants in terms of the last couple of decades of computing.
Which is so true. And I think another thing that, correct me if I'm wrong, but in there he was talking about how at every stage of huge technological change, there's this whole marketing thing that has to happen where people have to understand what's actually happening. Right. I mean, technology is the study of techniques, and a technique is specifically how you do something. Yeah. And so as technology advances and we understand how we're doing things more intimately, then what we ultimately are able to produce also changes, and that advances. Right. But not everybody's aware of that because not everybody is studying the techniques. And actually I'll say this, not everybody's studying the techniques in the information space, because when I think of IT, we can probably turn around whatever, yeah. But when we think of IT, that's information technology. And I think this actually gets the word technology, if I may if I may, the word technology gets blanketed, like we've co-opted the word technology as software people, as hardware people in the information space. But in reality, technology applies to so many different industries. There's food technologies, there's communication technologies, and if you just look at how the techniques change over time in any given space, then you're seeing an evolution of technology. But right now in the AI space, is we've just found ways to have information, like one, sort information, but then two, really process big pieces of information and then program it to do things, and then do things on our behalf while maintaining coherency with the task at hand, the characters at hand. And that's really what AI really is. It's just an evolution of our techniques of how to manage information and get it to work for us, and how to get it and how to apply those techniques.
What I think is very interesting, and something that they touched on a little bit in the Sequoia AI Summit, was the fact that in the past, computing has been extremely deterministic. You can program a machine to be, 1 + 1 is always 2. It's very deterministic, stuff that, there's a high amount, I guess there's a high amount of confidence that I know what's going to happen when this input goes into the system. And with AI, there's an increasing level of non-determinism that happens when you start using AI, which is very interesting to me, because I think that's also with humans. I think humans are also kind of non-deterministic. And especially their memories. An example that I remember seeing in this video was very soon we're going to get to a spot where, it's very important, especially if you're doing business with someone and you have an agent who's working on your behalf, that there's a certain level of persistence there, right? So in the real world, if you are doing business with somebody and they're not the same person every day, you probably won't go back to them and do business with them very often. Or if there's no persistence on who you are to them, if they always forget who you are, they don't really know why you're there, or stuff like that, you're not really going to go back and do business with them. The AIs need to be just as persistent as humans are in terms of remembering why you're there, remembering these little things about you. But then also, AI could get too good and remember every little detail, whereas a human's not going to. And I think there's a certain level of trust and security that you get out of some of that stuff that's not as deterministic. And I think that's just an interesting side note that I was thinking, that we're moving more and more and more towards, and the AI models mimicking or mirroring how the humans think and how humans interact, which is not necessarily deterministic.
There has to be a level of continuity. I think that's what you're getting at, right?
Yes, a certain level of it.
Of continuity between engagements. If every time me and you met, it was new, then it would just be hard to communicate. There's this movie, it's kind of a throwback movie, but it's Adam Sandler movie, Drew Barrymore. It's called 50 First Dates. And I believe it was Drew Barrymore. She had this head accident, and she lost a large part of her memory, and so she married this guy Adam Sandler, and he was so in love with her that he basically reminded her every day that she woke up of their relationship, and he recorded that stuff. And so but it goes to the point where it's like it's really hard to communicate with people when there's no continuity of the relationship, of who people are, and the main important pieces of information. And I think like that's the next hurdle that AI has to overcome.
Yep.
Is getting really good at understanding context and how dynamic context can be.
Exactly.
It's dynamic context, not just flat context. And they did talk like about that, I think, in a really good way when we were in the summit. Another thing, and maybe we could loop this in, is how they said the agentic economy. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, the agent economy is a new term that they're coining, right? They are trying to get out there because that's where their money's going.
Well, but it also makes sense too, because it's an economy is the allocation of scarce resources, and then how we make decisions outside of that. And so if you think about how we're making our decisions around scarce resources just in the real economy, it becomes really interesting to think about how our agents are going to be making decisions when they're competing over scarce resources in the digital economy, specifically because that affects
the real world.
Yeah. And so they're going to be interacting with each other based off of these predetermined codings and programmings,
logic,
in this logic. And so how does that affect what happens in the real world? That's something that, and I'll even throw another thing in there. Our level of understanding and our ability to get the top of the line AIs is going to be really critical. Because if you have a really good AI, one that can understand your goals, one that can understand how to advocate for your goals, communicating with an AI that doesn't have those programmings in there, that forgets who it's actually siding with, or who it's actually supposed to be advocating for, and who it's actually representing, then it becomes pretty obvious to see, okay, how is that going to play out, and how is that going to work out in the real world?
And where people's attention are going to go, oh, this is a top tier AI, let's just double down and use that.
But I mean, like, oh, Jake's AI is going out there and negotiating buying a car for him, and it's going to go and try and find the best deals. Is going to go and try and find the best deals on behalf of him. And then there's another person who doesn't have a great AI, and
the seller,
and they just can't advocate in the exact same way. It's like that's going to have real ramifications, and that's the nature that we find ourselves in. And it's so interesting that they bring it up, because in that discussion, it was basically assuming, like, okay, this is just the real world right now. Here's how things are changing. What are the implications of it? Because even though not everything is perfect with AI, it's the world with AI provides more opportunity for value than the world without AI. So we're keeping it.
That's true.
We're not going to get rid of it or ban it.
Right.
And so now it just becomes, okay, how do we work and live around that? And that's the mystery and the puzzle that we're solving at this moment in the AI space. So it was really cool to hear them talk about that.
I think, and you're touching on a point that's really important, right? It's like, with these tools, how are we solving problems now? How are we actually, because before I had a hammer, I was using my screwdriver to drive in nails.
And now that thing around and started banging that in. And now that I have a hammer, I use my hammer for everything.
Exactly. I could never learn that there's a drill, right? But so like, and that's a question that I think is cool to talk about here, is like, especially with us being so close to AI, how are we seeing AI and agents being used to solve people's problems or pain points?
How are we using AI? How do we see AI? How do you think?
For us, especially, helping content creators or people who are looking to make their first online sale, in a digital way, using AI can help you kind of bring all of your ideas together and help you formulate a digital product that you can actually sell to people. Like, it's a second brain that you can converse with and organize around, that helps you achieve that goal. So, there was actually, in a broad sense, that way.
Yeah, there's actually this guy. He's a professor at Stanford, an adjunct. I don't know what he specifically does at Stanford, but he works at Stanford. I believe he's a professor, and he was talking about how a lot of people are using AI wrong.
Ooh.
Because I think there's so many general applications. Obviously, we're working the entrepreneur space, and of course, I'm sure that we'll get more into that. But I think like what he was talking about was really interesting because he was saying, hey, there is a way to use it, and not everybody is using it maximally, and that makes a difference between your like how your relationship with it. Like one thing that he said that I thought was really interesting was, and we'll include links to both of these below. But one thing that he was saying was that he doesn't use AI, he works with AI, and he treats his AI like a partner or a teammate and not as a tool specifically. Because when he does that, he interacts with it differently.
Sure.
He wrote a book previously called Idea Flow, so that might help you get to the like who he actually is. It was right before ChatGPT was released. And his whole idea was that for every business, you have to have idea flow. That's the number one thing, because when you have a good idea, that's the thing that can lead to profitability. And an idea is basically just like it's a general big blanket term, but being able to create that flow and have instincts on what's working and what's not is huge. And AI plays a pivotal role in that as a baseline. But we have to shift over to the Super Secret Founders Drive, where we're going to be talking a little bit more practicals. We could probably lead into some of this. So
I think so, and I think that's why I would highly recommend you guys to check out this podcast that we're doing. That's super secret on Constance.
Yep.
You'll see it uploaded there under the Founders Drive community, where we're going to be talking literally about how we're using AI to solve people's problems.
Yeah. So if you want to subscribe, if you want to do all that, that's fine. We're not going to ask you to do that. No. But what we are going to ask you to do is come join us, come talk with us, and come engage with us on the Super Secret and watch the Super Secret Founders Drive. And we'll be back next week for more content.
Absolutely.
Cool. Peace out.